What would you do if the father who abandoned you walked into your gym as a client 30 years later and you had to train him? I was checking my client schedule for the week when I saw a name that made my heart stop. Marcus Chen was written in neat block letters on the booking sheet. That was my name. But this was a client booking, and the name on the sheet wasn't mine. It was my father's, James Chen, the man who had abandoned me before I could even form memories of him. The man who gave up all parental rights the moment I was born. The man I had spent 30 years hating, wondering about, and trying to forget. I stared at the name for what felt like an eternity. My hand was shaking as I set down the clipboard. I figured it was just a coincidence. There had to be other James Chens in the world. It was a common name. It couldn't be him. It couldn't be the man who had walked out on my mother when she needed him most, who had refused to be a father to me my entire life. I tried to focus on my other clients. I had a full schedule that day, a mix of beginners and advanced athletes. I had people counting on me to help them get stronger, healthier, better. I couldn't afford to be distracted by a ghost from my past, but the name kept haunting me. Every time I glanced at the booking sheet, it was there. James Chen, 2 p.m. Private training session. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just another client with a familiar name. I had to be professional. I had to treat everyone the same. That was what my boss always told me. That was what I told myself. But deep down, I knew. I knew it was him. When the time came for his appointment, I stood in the gym lobby, pretending to be busy with paperwork. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I was trying to act calm, trying to look like any other trainer waiting for their client. But inside, I was a mess. The door opened. A man walked in. He was in his 60s, gray hair, tired eyes. He was carrying a small gym bag and looking around the unfamiliar space like he didn't quite belong there. He was thinner than I imagined he would be. Frail, like life had beaten him down in ways I couldn't see. I knew immediately who he was. He had my eyes, my nose. The same build I had when I was younger, before I started lifting. Looking at him was like looking at a ghost of my own future, a version of myself that had taken a very different path. He walked up to the front desk and told the receptionist his name, James Chen. There was no doubt now. It was him. The receptionist pointed in my direction. I saw his eyes follow her gesture, and then he looked at me. For a moment, neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. We just stood there, staring at each other across the gym floor. I could feel my throat tightening. My hands were clammy. Every instinct I had told me to run, to hide, to get away from this man who had caused me so much pain. But I couldn't. This was my job. This was my responsibility. I was a professional, and I had a duty to my clients. So I swallowed my fear, pasted a smile on my face, and walked toward him. James Chen? I said, my voice barely steady. He nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on my face. That's me. I'm Marcus. I'll be your trainer today. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me. Really looked. Like he was searching for something. Maybe he was comparing me to the baby he had held 30 years ago. Maybe he was wondering if I had grown up to be someone he could be proud of. I didn't ask. I couldn't. The words wouldn't come. I showed him to the training floor and started him on a light warm-up. I kept things professional, clinical, the way I always did with new clients. I asked about his fitness history, his goals, any injuries I should know about. He answered all my questions quietly, his voice low and hesitant. He was out of shape, badly. He struggled with even basic exercises. His form was poor, his breathing was labored, and he looked like he had spent decades neglecting his body. I had seen this before, with older clients who had let themselves go. But with him, it felt different. It felt personal. I tried to ignore it. I tried to treat him the same way I treated anyone else. But the whole time I was replaying the scenes in my head. My mother crying when I asked about my father. My grandparents' sad looks when I asked if he would ever come back. The one time he agreed to meet me for coffee, and he never showed up. How could this man stand in front of me now, asking me to help him get stronger, when he had never been strong enough to be a father? Halfway through the session, I excused myself. I told him I needed to get some water, but that was a lie. The truth was I was falling apart. I walked into the locker room, locked myself in a stall, and I sobbed. The tears came flooding out. Years of anger, years of hurt, years of wondering why I wasn't good enough, why he didn't want me, why he had chosen to walk away and never look back. I cried for the little boy who had waited by the window for a father who never came. I cried for the teenager who had tried so hard to connect, only to be rejected again and again. I cried for the man I had become, who had built a life without him, only to have him walk back into my world like he belonged there. I stayed in that stall for a long time, trying to collect myself. I couldn't let him see me like this. I couldn't give him the satisfaction of knowing how much he had hurt me. When I finally came out, I splashed cold water on my face and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red. My face was pale. I didn't look like a professional trainer. I looked like a broken man, but I had to finish the session. I had to get through this. I walked back onto the training floor and finished his workout in silence. He didn't say anything. He just followed my instructions, doing the exercises I told him to do, pushing himself hard, even though I could see he was struggling. Maybe he was trying to prove something. Maybe he was punishing himself. I didn't know. I didn't ask. When the session was over, I told him to come back next week for his next appointment. He nodded and left without another word. I stood there in the empty gym, watching him walk out the door, and I felt a weight settle on my chest that I couldn't shake. That night, I told my wife Emily everything. We were sitting in our living room, the lights dim, a half-empty bottle of wine on the table. I had been quiet all evening, distant, lost in thought. She knew something was wrong. She always knew. "Marcus, talk to me," she said gently.
"You've been acting strange all night." I took a deep breath.
"My father came to the gym today." She stared at me. "Your father? The one who abandoned you? The one who left before I was born?" I shook my head. "He came as a client. He booked a training session with me. I had to train him for a full hour." Emily reached out and took my hand. "How are you feeling?" I laughed bitterly. "How am I feeling? I don't know. I don't know what I'm feeling. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm confused." I looked at his face today and I felt nothing. Then I looked at him again and I felt everything all at once. She squeezed my hand. "This is a lot to process. But maybe this is your chance." "My chance for what?" "Closure. Maybe even a relationship. You've been wondering about him your whole life. Now he's right in front of you. This could be a good thing if you let it." I pulled my hand away. "A good thing? He left me, Emily. He abandoned my mother and never looked back. He didn't want me. Why should I want him now?" "Because you're not the same person you were," she said calmly. "Neither is he. People can change." I didn't want to hear that. I wanted to stay angry. I wanted to hold on to the resentment that had carried me through 3 decades of wondering. But Emily had a way of seeing through my defenses. She always had. "I can't do it," I said finally. "I can't just forgive him like nothing happened. I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm asking you to think about it. You don't have to decide anything right now. Just think." I nodded, not trusting my voice. She was right. I didn't have to decide anything tonight, but the thought of seeing him again, of talking to him, of hearing his voice filled me with a dread I couldn't explain. The next day at the gym was a blur. I was distracted going through the motions with my clients, but my mind was elsewhere. Every time I saw the training floor, I saw my father's face. Every time I heard a voice that sounded like his, my heart skipped a beat. I couldn't stop thinking about him. I remembered the photo on my grandparents' nightstand, the only picture I had of him. He looked young and handsome and full of promise. Now he was old and tired and broken. Life had beaten him down just like it had beaten my mother down. I tried to focus on my work, but the distractions were everywhere. My first client of the day was a young boy with his father. They were laughing and joking together, the father encouraging the son looking up at his dad like he was a superhero. Watching them made my chest ache. I never had that. I would never have that. But then, as I was walking back to the front desk, I overheard a heated argument between a father and his teenage son in the waiting area. The father was yelling, the son was yelling back. It was ugly and painful, and it made me reconsider everything. Maybe I didn't want a relationship with my father after all. Maybe the resentment was too deep. Maybe I was never going to be able to look at him without feeling like the abandoned little boy he had left behind. Throughout the day, I watched my clients. I saw a father comforting his daughter after a difficult diagnosis. I saw a grandfather teaching his grandson how to deadlift properly. I saw a man training alone, no family by his side, just like my father had chosen to be all those years ago. Every sign pointed in a different direction. Every moment told me a different story. I didn't know what to believe anymore. At lunch, I sat in the break room, picking at a sandwich I didn't want to eat. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Are you okay? Do you want to talk later?" I typed back okay and put the phone down. I didn't know what I wanted to say. The next time my father came in for a session, I was more prepared. I had spent the night talking to Emily, going back and forth about what to do. She was patient with me, always patient, always understanding. She listened to my fears, my doubts, my anger. And when I was done, she simply said, "You'll know what to do when the time is right." She was right. She usually was. I walked onto the training floor and saw him standing there, waiting. He looked smaller than he had the first time, more fragile, like the weight of the past was pressing down on him. "Ready to work?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. He nodded. "Let's do this." We went through the session like before, me giving instructions, him following them. But this time the silence was different. It was heavier, more loaded. There was something he wanted to say. I could feel it. Finally, halfway through the workout, he stopped. "I know who you are," he said quietly. I froze. "What? I knew the first time I saw you? I knew the moment I walked through the door. I knew you were my son. My heart was pounding. Why didn't you say anything?" He looked down at his hands. "I didn't want to force anything. I wanted to give you a chance to come to me on your own terms. I figured if I pushed you, you'd push me away." I laughed bitterly. "Push me away? You're the one who walked away." "You're right," he said softly. "I did, and I've regretted it every single day." I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tell him that regret wasn't enough, that he had missed my whole life, that he couldn't just walk back in now and pretend everything was okay. But I didn't. I was tired. "So tired. Why did you—" I asked instead. "Why did you abandon us?" He sat down heavily on a weight bench. His face was gray with exhaustion, his hands trembling slightly. "It's a long story," he said. "I have time." He took a deep breath. "I was young when I met your mother. 22. She was 20. We were kids, really. When she found out she was pregnant, I was terrified. I didn't have a job. I didn't have money. I didn't have anything to offer you. Then I started using. It started small, just a little something to take the edge off. But it got worse. I started stealing money, borrowing from the wrong people. I got in with a dangerous crowd. Your mother didn't know. She thought I was just working odd jobs, trying to make ends meet. But I was already spiraling. When you were born, I realized I wasn't going to get better anytime soon. I was a danger to you both. If I stayed, I would have brought that danger into your lives. So I left. I thought I was protecting you. I thought I was doing the right thing. I stared at him, my mind racing. You thought abandoning us was the right thing? I didn't know what else to do, he said, his voice cracking. I was scared. I was ashamed. And I was so far gone that I couldn't see any other way. I wanted to come back. So many times I wanted to come back, but I didn't think I deserved to. I was silent for a long time. Then I asked the question I had been holding inside for 30 years. Did you ever love me? He looked up at me and I saw tears in his eyes. I loved you the moment I knew you existed. I loved you when I held you for the first time. I loved you when I walked away, and I have loved you every single day since. I just didn't know how to be a father. I still don't. I felt my own tears starting to fall. I tried to hold them back, but I couldn't. All those years of anger, all that hurt, it was pouring out of me. I didn't ask to be born, I said, my voice shaking. I didn't ask for any of this. You made a choice to leave, and I had to live with the consequences my whole life. Do you have any idea what that was like? Do you have any idea what it's like to grow up wondering if your father even wanted you? I know, he whispered. I know, and I'm sorry. I can't take back what I did. I can't give you back the years I missed. But I'm here now, and if you'll let me, I want to try to be a father to you. I didn't respond. I didn't know how. So I just stood there, the weight of his words pressing down on me. I'm not going to rush you, he said after a long silence. I'll keep coming for training if you'll have me, but the rest is up to you. If you want to talk, I'll be here. If you don't, I'll understand. I've already taken too much from you. I won't take your choice. I went home that night and told Emily everything. The session.
The confession.
His story. How he had been young and scared and broken. How he had left because he thought he was protecting us. She listened without interrupting, her hand on mine. When I was done, she asked me what I wanted to do. I don't know, I said honestly. Part of me wants to give him a chance, but another part of me is still so angry. I think you need to let yourself feel both, she said. There's no right way to handle this. Whatever you decide, I'm here to support you. The next few weeks were a roller coaster. My father kept showing up for training and I kept working with him. We didn't talk much at first, but gradually we started to have conversations. Small ones at first, then deeper ones. He told me about his life after he left. His attempts to get sober, his struggles to hold down a job, his decades of regret. One afternoon, over coffee at a cafe near the gym, he told me more. He explained how his addiction had led him to steal from dangerous people. He had borrowed money from criminals and couldn't pay it back. They had threatened my mother. They had threatened him. Leaving was the only way to keep us safe. I didn't fully understand it. I didn't fully forgive him. But I started to see him differently. Not as a villain, but as a flawed human being who had made terrible choices and had spent the rest of his life paying for them. Over the following months, our relationship grew stronger. We still had our difficult moments. We still had conversations that ended in silence or tears, but we kept trying. He was more vulnerable than I had ever seen him. He talked about his guilt, his shame, his desire to make things right. He listened when I talked about my childhood, my loneliness, the emptiness I had felt. He didn't make excuses. He just listened, and slowly something shifted. The anger started to fade. The resentment began to loosen its grip on me. I started to see him as a person, not just a symbol of everything I had missed. Emily was my anchor through it all. Whenever I doubted myself, she reminded me that healing wasn't linear, that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, that it was okay to feel conflicted. She helped me see that reconciliation wasn't about erasing the past, but about making peace with it. One evening, after a particularly intense training session, we sat in the empty gym together. The lights were dim, the equipment put away. It felt like a sacred space, just the two of us. I'm proud of you, my father said quietly. I'm proud of the man you've become. I looked at him and felt a lump form in my throat. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. I wish I could have been there for you, he said. I wish I could have watched you grow up. I wish I could have been at your wedding or held your children, but I know I don't deserve that. I just want you to know that I love you. I've always loved you. I didn't say anything. I just reached out and put my hand on his shoulder. And for the first time in 30 years, I let myself feel it. Not anger, not resentment, just acceptance. He ended up getting a gym membership and would come regularly. We would sometimes train together, sometimes just talk. He told me about the things he had missed, the milestones he had wanted to be part of. He asked about my life, my work, my relationship with Emily. He asked for pictures of my childhood, of my school years, of my graduation. I showed him everything. He wanted to see it all. It wasn't easy. There were days when I still felt angry. There were days when I wondered if I was making a mistake. But there were also days when I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. I hadn't realized how much I needed this. I hadn't realized how much I had been carrying, how much of my pain had been festering under the surface. Letting go of some of that weight allowed me to breathe again. My father's health continued to be a concern. He had a history of addiction and a weakened heart from years of neglect. There were moments when I feared I might lose him, just as we were beginning to rebuild our relationship. But he kept showing up, kept pushing himself, kept trying. One evening, we sat on a park bench near the gym, watching the sunset together. He was tired but peaceful, his eyes fixed on the sky. "I don't deserve this," he said quietly. "I don't deserve you." "Maybe not," I said. "But you're here now. That counts for something." He turned to look at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. "Thank you," he said, "for giving me a chance." We sat there in silence for a long time, watching the sky turn from orange to pink to purple. And for the first time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I had finally made peace with the past. Looking back now, I realized that the journey wasn't about forgiving him or forgetting what he had done. It was about finding a way to move forward. It was about letting go of the anger that had been holding me back for so long. I still have moments of doubt. I still feel the sting of abandonment sometimes, but I also feel something new, connection. A bond that, while imperfect, is real. My father is still part of my life. We train together every week, and sometimes we just talk. We have shared meals, shared stories, shared silence. We have built something fragile but real, something that reminds me of the power of second chances. My mother never wanted to talk to him, which I understood. She had moved on, found a new life. She was remarried and had started a new family of her own in a different state. She had already dealt with the hurt and had chosen to leave it behind. He still came to the gym every week. He still tried. He showed up and I showed up, and somehow that was enough. We both knew we had a long way to go. We both knew the past would never fully disappear. But we also knew we were building something new, something that belonged to neither of them, but to us. I still see him at the gym sometimes, working out on his own, pushing himself to get stronger. I watch him struggle and succeed, and I feel a sense of pride that I never expected to feel. He has come a long way from the broken man who walked through the doors. So have I. I walk onto the training floor and I see him there waiting. He smiles at me, a tired, hopeful smile, and I realize that this is what healing looks like. It's not perfect. It's not easy, but it's real, and that's enough. Stories about healing and second chances remind us that it's never too late to rebuild. Subscribe for more real-life stories that will touch your heart.